Okay, I'm going to be reading from Romans chapter 10, verse 15 first. So I'm going to read it and then translate it, and then we'll come and look at some of the apparatus, things that deal with this verse in particular. We'll look at the Septuagint quotation that's found in this verse. And I do think the Septuagint quote is going to be key to understanding the apparatus, understanding which reading is the best, and maybe describing how some of the variants came about in this passage. Let's go in and look at verse 15. This is Romans chapter 10. And then I'm going to come back and give you my translation of this verse. So post day, keruxosen, and me, apostolosen, kathos, gegraptai, hos, horeioi, hoi potis, ton euangeli zomenon, ta agatha. I start off with post day, but how? And then you have keruso here as the verb, to preach or to proclaim. This is an aorist active subjunctive. Third person is how I translated it. So if not would be the next two words. Apostolosen. Apostolosen would be from apostolo, to be sent. This is aorist passive subjunctive, third singular. And then kathos would just be like a conjunctive here, an adverb, as. Then grapho is the next word here. And we have the perfect passive, indicative third singular of grapho here in this verse. And then we have the word beautiful, beautiful feet. And then this gigantic participle from euangelizo, to proclaim good news. So it's a present middle participle, a genitive masculine plural. And then we have good. So as we start to translate this and put this all together, but how are they to preach if they are not sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet are the ones proclaiming the good news. That's how I translated it. Once again, let me read it a little bit quicker. But how are they to preach if they are not sent? And as it is written, how beautiful are the feet are the ones proclaiming the good news. So that's how I translated that verse. So let's go, and I'm going to pull up, I'm going to share my screen now and show you the apparatus for this particular verse. So I just included the passage here. I went on and highlighted the apparatus issues here. And we're going to look, first of all, at kathos. And we're going to look down at the apparatus here of Nessel line 28. And we're going to see in place of that is a kathaper. And this is found in Vaticanus and also in Minuscule 81. So that's just two witnesses for that. Now, I didn't get too spun up about this one in particular because you could see where this mistake could have happened. And this is not such a big deal if you look at kathos and kathaper. We just have these like conjunctive adverbial words here, and they could be translated as or just. So that's not such a big deal. And then for the text itself, we have overwhelming witnesses. We've got Papyrus 46. We got Sinaiticus. We've got Alexandrinus. We've got Ephraimi. We've got an array of uncials here. And then we also have some minuscules that are here to attest for this text. We see the majority text, we see Clement. So we have a lot to attest to kathos is the correct reading. So I'm going to go with, and I don't think this one is connected to the other variant at all. So I'm going to go in and say that's the original reading, what's there in the text for Nestle-Aland. As we move down, though, we see like an interjection here. We see this sign here. So we're going to have interjected in here. We see two euangeli zomenon. We're going to have euangela zomenon, but we're also going to get a reine. A reine is going to be interjected in the passage for this variant. And so we find this for the second corrector of Sinaiticus. We find it for I'm having a mental block all of a sudden. I've said this about 1,000 times. Clairmontanus. So we find Clairmontanus. We find the second corrector for Vaticanus attesting for this. Various uncials, minuscules, the majority text. We get Latin, we get Syriac, we get Irenaeus, we get Eusebius. Now for Irenaeus in Eusebius, we get this strange little sigla here that means the sequence of words enclosed between the two sigla there, or the two symbols, have been translated with variants, and that would just be for the Latin version of Irenaeus and for Eusebius. So this is a variant that we need to look at, that we may need to think hard about. So before we start to build a case for what this variant is, or possibly where it came from, or could this be the correct reading actually? Before we do that, let's look at what the text is being attested by. So for the text, we've got Papyra 46, we've got the original hand of Sinaiticus, we've got Alexandrinus, we've got Vaticanus. We have some really good witnesses here. We got Ephremi, and we got some minuscules. We've got Arminian, we've got Coptic, and we've got Clement, all attesting to the reading that's found in Nestle-Aland in their text. So just the Ton Euangela Zomenon is attested to by those witnesses. Let's think about that for just a minute. How did this reading come about? And let's skip down and look at this omission, because this omission, I think, in my mind, relates back to the addition of Irenaeus, possibly. So I want to just see if I can make a case for that as we work through that. Maybe this ta that's omitted in this addition of Irenaeus could be related. And we're going to see if the witnesses line up. If they don't, then my theory's shot. So I'm trying to do this like we're in class, like as we're just trying to work through it together and talk through it, and let's just see. So we've got second corrector of Sinaiticus. We've got Alexandrinus. We've got Vaticanus. We've got a lot of uncials for the omission. Some heavy hitter uncials here, back to back, and the second corrector of Sinaiticus. So we've got quite a few uncials. We've got minuscules. We got Eusebius, all saying that the ta should be omitted. So let's go look at what's the attesting for the text. Well, once again, look at the similarity. I'm going to just highlight. I think y'all can see this, I hope. If not, then that's not so sharp. So here we have some similarity in some of these witnesses. So the first two, especially to me, pop, that we've got both these witnesses agreeing. We've got Papyrus 46 and Sinaiticus from the original hand attesting to the text here. Quite a few other things here attesting to the text too. So where did this come from? Why would we add Irenaeus? Is that the original reading possibly? And why would we drop ta? What's that all about? So when we go back, we realize that from starting at Hos here and ending at Agatha, we've got a quote from the Septuagint. So I included here, Rolf's, I believe, is the version I've got up here. And we're going to notice, okay, from here to here, we're getting a Septuagint quote by Paul. So what is he doing with this quote? Well, it's not a word for word quote. You're going to notice right out the gate, there's some omissions. If this is the original text, if Nestle-Aland's original, we're going to notice there's some omissions. And also, he's changed the number of some of these participles. So these participles are going to go from singulars to plurals too, as Paul starts to write this out into the text. So he's got a reason for this. There's a theological reason, I believe. I'm going to try to make a case for. But let's look at this. So he quotes and he changes this participle here is singular. That's interesting. This participle here is singular. So that kind of got my attention really quick as we're thinking about Paul is using this same term to proclaim the good news, euangelizo, or euangelizo, he's using the same verb, but he's changing the participles into plural. So there's a reason for that. Also notice there's no ta in the original reading. So you're missing from the Septuagint this ta, okay? But found within the Septuagint, you have got arene. So arene is here. And I find that interesting that it's there in the Septuagint, and in some of our witnesses of the variant, arene is added. So could it been, and I'm going to scroll down. I think I topped some of this out a little bit. Yeah. Why does Paul omit arenes from this quote from the Septuagint? So the Septuagint speaks of this report of peace. So they're proclaiming this good news, this report of peace. Also, you can look at the Septuagint in Isaiah 52:7 and think, okay, maybe this is about the Messiah. This is a singular person that's doing this. So possibly Paul is putting off speaking of a report of peace until verse 16 and 17, where he'll focus on the report of the good news that should be believed upon. And who is going to preach this good news is the apostle. So he's already taking this passage and adapting it to the apostolic message. You know, this is not going to be the Messiah taking this good news. It's a plurality. It's the plural form. So it's these apostles that will take the good news. And so arene is omitted because I believe in verse 16, when you see verse 16, there's going to be, let me pull my translation of verse 6. So in verse 16, you've got, but not all will obey the good news or hear the good news. For Isaiah says, Lord, who has believed our report. So there's this report that's coming, these ones bringing the good news, guys like Paul. And so that's going to be the focus, not this report of peace that Isaiah is talking about. So I believe this is the original reading. First of all, you look at the external evidence. If we look at the external evidence, you've got some really good, you got some good manuscripts for both. But it just seems like to me, when you have the second corrector for Sinaiticus, what this corrector is doing in both cases for the omission and also the addition of arene is maybe that corrector has the Septuagint text in front of him, and he's saying, well, you know what? I'm going to help Paul out here, Brother Paul. I'm going to help him better quote the Septuagint, and actually it's not going to take the meaning away so much from what Paul's trying to say. I do believe the original text is Paul is using the Septuagint for his purposes. He's already changed the participles to be plurals. This is about the apostles taking this message out. And in verse 16, the focus of the report is not going to be peace. It's going to be this message that's coming out, this message that should lead to faith. So that may be a weak reason, but that's what I've got for you. There's your use of the Septuagint in this passage. You've got the critical apparatus there. And I'm hoping my explanation made a little bit of sense. So that's where I stand on that passage. So let me stop sharing now. And I'm going to shift gears and go from Romans 10. And I just want to make sure I've done everything I wanted to do here with Romans 10 before we move on. Make sure I didn't leave anything on the table here. No, I think I got everything I want to say with Romans 10. So I'm done with Romans 10. Let's move on to 1 Peter chapter 1. And we're going to be looking at the critical major, the edition critical major version of the Catholic epistles. We're going to look at its apparatus, and then we're going to look at some of the computer software and look at some of the connections here with the initial text and the variant passage and the coherence as we look at the INTF site and try to get some insight from that also. I've been trying to learn how to do that, and it's been difficult, but I'm going to do my best with that. So let's look at 1 Peter. You guys have already read through this passage in class. I'm not going to read it again. But my primary concern with this passage is right here. I'm going to highlight so you guys can see it. Let me make sure I've shared my screen. I don't think I shared my screen. Hold on one second. I'm going to share this with you so you can see what I'm looking at. Okay. So now my primary concern is these sets of words here, 20, 22, 24, and 26. Of course, the even numbers apply to the terms in the text. So the odd numbers would just be the spacing there. So we've got these places that Paul is mentioning. Now, Galatia is not part of this list, but you've got this, 3 Roman provinces, I guess, and then one location. A lot of times Pontus and Bithynia will end up being included together many times. So you've got this letter being sent out to this diaspora of people, and Paul's mentioning these places. And when I get to my explanation of what I think the correct reading is, I'll give you some reasons why. But as we look at the apparatus, so let's scroll down first and look at the apparatus. And this is a little bit different than Nestle-Aland, of course, but looking at 20 through 26, and once again, it's these terms here, 20 through 26. So we got Cappadocia, Asia, and Kai, Bithynia. So let's look at what we've got here. So for the original reading, for what we have right there in the text, we have got a massive array of witnesses. So we got 2 papyri here. We've got 72 and 74. We've got corrector 2 of 01. So 01 is Sinaiticus. So we have the original hand, I guess. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Second corrector of right there, second corrector of Sinaiticus. And then we've got Alexandrinus. We've got the original hand, so to speak, of Vaticanus. And we just keep moving. There's Ephraimi, and we've got various minuscules. We've got the Byzantine text form, and I forgot what this is. I'm drawing a blank, but we've got the Latin Vulgate. All of these attest to what we have in the text right now. So those attest for this reading right here. All of those do. So let's look at the variants that do not agree with that. So as we come to this, we're going to notice really the only difference as we're carefully looking through this. We got Cappadocius, Kai, Asius, Kai, Bithynius. So you've got really all we've done is added a Kai. We've added a Chi here. So let's, before we talk about why possibly a Chi would have been added, we noticed 614, 6, so we got a lot of minuscules here. We've got a lectionary, we've got the Syriac, and hold on, I can tell you what that actually, had that pulled up in front of me a second ago, what that actually is, the H. Let me see, hold on one second. Just looked at it. The H is Harclensis, I believe. Yeah, Syriac Harclensis. And then we have got the Apostolus Sistovelacensis. I believe it's what the SI is for here. And let's see. That's correct. All right. And so we've had an added Chi. Now, to me, that didn't bother me too much because you could see why a Chi would be added. I mean, in English, it's easy for us to think of a list that we would just have comma, comma, comma. But in Greek, if I'm correct, that having a Chi between each term in a list would not be unheard of or would be considered bad. It may actually help here, the grammar. And it would make sense because you have a Chi here. Why not have a Chi in this entire between each one in the list? So that could be easily described as a scribe going in and trying to make this read better, make it smoother, make sense of it. You could see where we could add a Chi here. And then here, this one doesn't make as much sense to me because we have, I'm trying to think the reasoning for having Cappadocius, Asia, and then all of a sudden Bithynius with a Chi. So you'd have a Galatia Chi. I mean, there's when you look at the geography of that, you're like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? You might combine Bithynia and Pontius together because they were combined a lot of times. Sometimes were synonymous with one another. So, biblically, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But we have minuscules here attesting to this in this particular case. And also we have, I'm drawing a blank on A. My goodness. I wasn't in class with you guys, but I think I'm experiencing brain drain at this point too. I struggled. Yesterday was a long day and Friday was too. I am totally drawing a blank on A. Oh man. I've got the list right here in front of me. Okay. Give me a second. It's Arminian. Man, it's like I'm slipping. Okay. So we got a attestation of an Arminian manuscript too. And then we see once again Chi, that we're just interjecting Chi's throughout this list. And so to me, these are not much different. These variants to me, I'm not, unless I'm just missing something, I'm not seeing some smoking gun as to some trend going on here other than the scribe just trying to help out the text here and make it read better. But once again, you've got some minuscules, you've got Latin, you've got Syrian, you've got Armenian manuscripts that are attesting to this, various ones. And then we have one with no Chi's at all, where you're just, it's all mashed together. So E would be no Chi whatsoever. Once again, we have some minuscules that attest to that. Okay, and then we get this next one, though, we have an omission, F, and this is one we got to pause and think about, omission. So we drop Asia off the list. And I don't know, I looked up, I tried to figure out why would a scribe make this mistake, or why would they do this intentionally? Is there a reason why you drop Asia off? And actually, there's not a reason, because there was an actual province known as Asia. Because I thought at first glance, well, maybe, Asia is a broader category, including all these places. And so maybe the scribe looked at it and said, well, this is just redundant and silly. Why don't we have Asia listed here? But that's not the case. So I really couldn't come up with a reason other than it's a scribal skip. You're seeing a lot of sigmas here. So possibly you skipped the end, you missed it and moved to the next word. I don't know. I'm at a loss on that one. I didn't really know what to think of that you're totally missing Asia from that list. And so you've got Sinaiticus from the original hand. It's a pretty good manuscript tradition there. We've got Old Greek here, and I'm sorry, Gregorian, Georgian, and we've got an edition of the Georgian here that's mentioned. So I don't know. That's a good question. I was stumped on this one. To me, I can make sense of the Romans 10 takes issues a lot more than I could this one. I just could not find a connector as to why we have these different variants. Once again, Cappadocia, Asia is found in one of our uncial manuscripts. So I don't know. I'm at a loss. This is where it'd be nice if I was in class. I could phone a friend and ask you guys what you thought about it, or why, if you could see some pattern as to why we're having these multiple variants that are pretty much additions of Chi's, or you've got, here you're missing Bithynia. Now, let me go back and backtrack on G. On G, this could, you got Vaticanus, who's a really good manuscript, or the original hand of Vaticanus here. So this could be, and this is just my guess, if Bithynia and Pontus were considered together many times as kind of one, maybe a scribe would go, why would we mention Bithynia separate? That's just, there's no reason for that. So there's a chance that's happening here. And then we have Asia and Bithynia dropped off. I don't know why. And then we have Cappadocia. It's like it's been an equal opportunity for everything to be left off, pretty much. They're leaving all these variants, different ones are being, and here you've got you've got one here, minuscule, then you've got one church father, Cyril, and then you've got, hold on, let me look at my Coptic here. You've got one Coptic witness, Sahidic. So I don't know. And then we've got the omission of the whole thing by one minuscule. So that to me was interesting, what was going on there. So I didn't have like a good answer for that. I can give an answer of why I think the original is a good reading. Now, Let me just talk about this real quick. This double arrow here with A, B, C, D, and you see Syriac and Armenian listed here, and then you got Coptic down here. And what those double arrows mean is it cannot be determined which of the variant readings noted is supported by the witnesses cited, whereas other readings for Greek manuscripts or variants for other witnesses are clearly not supported. For Greek manuscripts cited with a double arrow, further information is given in additional apparatus 5.2. With additional evidence, it indicates that the Greek translation base of the version cannot be inferred with confidence. So I'm going to just say that I was not real sure about that. I've got the supplement that came with mine, and I looked at my supplement. I just couldn't make heads or tails of what's going on there. And then here we have the minus symbol, and the minus symbol deals with, and I wrote this down real quick, so I'm sorry about this, but witnesses are not extant at this area of the variant. So witnesses are not extant at this area of the variant would be what that minus sign means. And then we've got Papyrus 81 and so on and so forth. So Colin Hamer did some research. Here's why I think this reading, and I can't tell you about the Kais. I don't have an answer for that. I really don't. Why you would have the addition or omission of Kais. But as far as having the list of, I believe it's 5 places that you've got here. So you've got Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. Hamer makes a compelling case that actually the person, I think it was Sylvanus that brought this letter, this was the route he would have taken. He makes geographical sense of how that happened. So he shows the travel route and says, okay, there's a reason these 5 places appear the way they do in the order that they appear, that it makes sense. I looked at another commentary by Karen Jobes, and she says, well, this is not like what we have like with the 7 letters of Asia or the 7 churches of Asia Minor in the book of Revelation. It's not the same setup, but Hamer, who really kind of, I think is a guy that's kind of an expert in the geography in particular. I know he did some work in the book of Acts, especially Asia Minor. He's pretty sharp. He said that this was actually a geographical description of how this letter made it to these different places. So this list of 5 matters. And so I'm going to say at least these 3 should be in the original text. And because of your overwhelming, I'm going to defer back to this. When I look at this right here and I go, okay, wow, that's a pretty good list of witnesses, then I have to defer and say, okay, that's pretty overwhelming evidence, because you've got an array of everything from, you've got the uncials, minuscules, you've got the Byzantine text form, and it seems like you've got some versions also that attest to this. So I'm going to maybe kind of lightweight, but that's what I'm going to fall to is the external evidence of the manuscript seemed pretty strong for this one, for the original reading. And I go with Colin Hamer and would say, even buttress that further and say these 3 places need to be in the reading because these were critical to the geography of the story. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second so I don't make you drunk. And now what I'm going to do is go to and look at the coherence using the software from the website we've been using. Let me share it now, what I've got here. Make sure I got it. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go to 1 Peter. We're going to look at the initial text here. I'm going to go from 20. I'm going to go to 26 because I believe that's the range in which I needed. We're going to include the Catholic letters, including fragments. I'm going to make A the initial reading. And we're going to see we're going to get something interesting, I believe. It's taking its sweet time right now. hope it works. There we go. Okay, we get a really interesting chart here. So we're saying, okay, here's, we went with A. So here's the initial text here. That German word is Augusttext, or so the initial text here, and we're seeing its closest ancestor is 1175. So when we looked at that, okay, that's let me find my, hold on, let me follow up my hard copy here of First Peter in my book here, and I'll look and tell you H. So its closest ancestor was H, which had dropped. Yeah, 1175 is the one that had only had Cappadocia. It had dropped off Asia and Bithynia. So I find that fascinating that the closest ancestor from the initial text is this one. Now, we also have some other lines where we have the closest ancestor also coming around. I'm talking about the initial text here is what I'm just talking about now. It's going to come down to D to 1243. And so we're going to have all Chi's pretty much for D. It had a Chi before everything. And so that's one of its closest ancestors also. And you see that also being 1175's next direct ancestor is that same 1243. That's fascinating. And there was another direct ancestor I think we've got. I'm trying to keep all this straight, all these lines. Another direct ancestor, 621, which was B. And B had all of the locations listed and had a Chi between Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. So there's 621. Let's follow, see if we got some more. On this side, we got quite a few direct ancestors. So we're going to come here and go to G. It is amazing how a lot of the direct ancestors for the initial text are pretty much all of our variants here. So then we got to start asking the question, well, how did that arise? How did these variants come from this initial text here? And how do we get these different forms of the text? And so there's reasons, I guess. Some could be scribal omissions, mistakes, possibly. I can't, the only reason I could see for the Chi's would be to help it read better, but leaving off the locations possibly would be a scribal error, maybe. I couldn't think of something intentional of why you would do that. So that's all I have for you for First Peter for verse 1, 20 through 26. I want to walk you through the INTF stuff here. And as you can tell, I'm not the best with this. This is something new to me, was using this software and seeing these connections, but I hope this was halfway decent. I've really enjoyed this semester. I'm thankful for the opportunity to make this up. I know that made everybody's life difficult. Was not easy for everyone, but I did enjoy getting to go back and watch the class and seeing the interaction and learning as other people are having to answer questions. So I will say this has been a ton of information, but I do think, we've got tools now to work through and navigate and text critical issues. And it's amazing to me, like like yesterday, day before yesterday, a few days ago, we worked through the question where we had connections between variants. We had multiple variants in one verse, but then we saw that, okay, there were connections even within the sources of those variants. There were reasons they were there. And we're seeing how the Septuagint quotes sometimes shape those reasons, possibly where a scribe is trying to come in and help the author in some way. So it's really fascinating to see those connections. But for First Peter, I'm sorry, I didn't see the connections there, understand possibly what caused the variance. But once again, I'm going with the original reading that's here in the text for First Peter 1, verse 1, as it stands right here. But thank you very much, Dr. Stark. Thank you for letting me do this, and I hope this was helpful.